Where do you come from?
A nice little town, you know. There was like 2 or 3 big factories, and then there was a lot of agriculture, you know, there was a lot of farms also in the area. And I think when I lived there, it was probably about, 15,000 people maybe, you know. And it was kind of, you know, small-minded and real conservative and a difficult place to live in the 60s, you know. You know, if you had, like, long hair or if anything different was, you know, suspected, tremendously, you know, feared. So it's pretty similar to most of the small towns, you know, in America.
In the LP, Born in the USA, and in No Surrender, there are the words, "We learned more from a 3-minute record than we learned in school." Is that true for you?
You know, like in school, there wasn't any particular subject I was good at, you know. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of people that just fall through the bottom of the educational system. You know, not because they're stupid, but because people don't know how to, they don't know how to reach them, number one, and number two, the kids themselves don't know how to open up their own consciousness, you know, like before, which is what rock and roll did for me, you know. It was like it just opened up my consciousness. It opened up it gave me a much wider sense of awareness.
At the time when you got into rock music, the Beatles and the English bands were at the top of the rock groups. Were you influenced by them? Did you want to play at Shea Stadium or be on TV?
Yeah, I guess I must have, you know. But the main thing I remember in the beginning, my goals were pretty modest. Like what I wanted to do was, I wanted to learn to play rhythm guitar, just so I could get in a band, just to be in a band. I didn't want to be the lead singer. I didn't want to be the lead guitarist. I just want to play rhythm guitar and just find my spot, kind of stand there and in the background and just, you know, just be in the band, you know, just play. And when I used to go I used to go and watch groups, I used to always watch the rhythm guitar player. You know, I always liked the rhythm guitarist, you know, for some reason. And I didn't become a lead guitarist until I got thrown out of the first band I was in. And a kid came over that was going out with my sister. I think he came over to see my sister. But I was around, the way he got in was he asked, "Hey, I got a band, and do you want to play guitar?" And I said, "Well, okay, you know," I said, "I can't play very much, but, you know, I know a few notes." And first solo I ever learned was to It's All Over Now, Rolling Stones. I went home, I remember the night I got thrown out of the band, I went home, so I'm going to learn, you know, and I learned that solo.
Was your stage dress influenced by the English bands?
Well, it was very difficult because at the time we were 15 and we decided we would have uniforms. And so we got these frilly shirts, kind of like the Kinks had, and we had these phony, like, snakeskin vests and Beatle boots, and we all, you know, had pretty long hair. And there was the big decision was like to wear uniforms and not. Finally, we wanted to be like this Rolling Stones. So we said, no, we don't want to wear uniforms. But your manager, who was probably an adult at the time, you know, they wanted you to. It was the same thing. They wanted you to play weddings and wear uniforms. You know? But you know, it was in those days the bands were pretty. It was difficult to play the Beatles songs because you had to be able to sing really well because they had all those harmonies, you know. So we ended up like doing a lot of the Stones kind of stuff. You didn't have to sing quite as good to do their stuff, but you know, those are the bands that we kind of patterned ourselves after at the time.
You signed with John Hammer, who discovered Bob Dylan. How did that happen? How did you sign up with him?
When I got in my early 20s, I was pretty much based around Asbury Park most of the time, and people didn't didn't really leave that much, you know. Like my sister, New York was always an hour away, and like she'd hardly ever been, like, you know. And that's the way it is with a lot of people there. Like it seems like the distance is not the mileage. You know, it's like it's a whole different way of, you know, people go up there, they're afraid, you know, they think they're going to get mugged. Or my sister went up and she couldn't find Fifth Avenue, and so she came back home. It was like she got confused, that was it. But I was sitting on my porch in Asbury, and a guy came along and said, "Hey, come on up, I know this guy, and he publishes songs, and why don't you sing him a few songs?" So I said, "Okay." So I went up and I met this guy, and he said he was interested in managing me. But then I went away for some reason. I took a trip for about 3 months. I went across the country to California. And then when I came back, I called him up, and he remembered me. And about a week later, I went in his office, and he says, "Well, we're going to go to Columbia." His idea, what's the biggest record company? Columbia. You know, all right, who's the biggest guy over there? You know, and that's just how that was his approach. And for some reason or another, John Hammond's secretary gave us an appointment. And so I remember I went in, and I had like this beat up guitar, and I was no guitar case, and I sat down, and my manager, Mike, was a very, he was pretty wild, you know. He was like, before I played a note, he got up and started saying, like, you know, I was the greatest thing that ever hit the planet, and, you know, all this, you know, all hyping me up already. And like I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh God, you know, they're gonna throw us out of here before I get to play anything. And then, you know, John Hammond says, "We'll play a song," and I played "Saint in the City." And it was right after I played one song, and he says, "Yeah," he says, "You gotta, you know, you gotta be on Columbia Records, you know." And I forget, it was like that connection. That's the dream, you know. It was like I was about 22, and I was a person that I never believed things until, you know, I wasn't one to get too excited too easily, because I'd been disappointed too many times. And I remember we walked out of the office that day, and we were like, you know, plus the guy, he was one of my heroes, you know. I'd read all about him, and I knew a lot about him. I knew he discovered Dylan, and I was a tremendous fan of Dylan, particularly at that period in my life. I was like, I threw myself back into his music here in my early 20s, you know. And it was one of those things that don't happen, that happened.
You don't record a lot, but you do shows of more than 3 hours long. Why do you work so hard?
I'm 35 now. I don't know if... I guess basically I always thought that I'd do it forever, you know, in some fashion. I didn't think that, like, you had to stop, or that age was a factor. Age was just something to be dealt with, you know. It was just something that you grow into it, you know. It just becomes a part of what you do. You know, I mean, rock and roll is not, you know, it's anymore. It's not something that's just for, you know, if you're 17, or there'll always be, you know, 15-year-olds doing it, but now there's going to be 45-year-olds doing it too. You know? So, you know, and that's good, because there's songs you can write at 35 that you cannot write when you're 20. You know, you can't. You know, it's like there's certain songs I'm writing now that I couldn't have wrote 10 years ago, or I just wouldn't have had the history or the sense of time, the sense of perspective, or the sense of just aging that you know, that gives you a little broader insight, you know, broader perspective on life and things in general.
Why do you play such a long set? Is it for your enjoyment or the audience's?
We always played a long time, you know, even right from the beginning. In the bars, you do 5 sets, and they're like, you know, 45 minutes. And then as you go along, usually when you first made records, you'll play sometimes 2 or 3 shows a night that are maybe an hour long. So it's actually about the same amount of time, you know, except mainly I did it because there was a point where just playing the one set didn't seem enough. There was a lot of songs that people came wanting to hear, certain favorite songs of theirs, which I still liked playing. And so, and I kind of separated the sets into they have a little, actually they're closer in feeling now than they have ever been. But it was just really, to allow just for more expression. It really wasn't. It wasn't a plan to like play a real long time, or it wasn't even a plan to like, give people like their money's worth or whatever. It was just for expression. It was just something that if a kid goes out, it's nice to have it's a whole night out. It's 3 hours and he should be much more tired than me when he walks out, because I do it all the time.